You're listening to the Cantina Cast, your home for thought-provoking Star Wars talk. Join Albert and Jonesy in breaking down the latest news, trailers, movies, and of course, your favorite characters from a galaxy far, far away.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cantina Cast. My name is Albert Padilla, and this is episode 417, Obi-Wan Kenobi Parts 1 and 2. So yes, we're about 2 weeks late on this. We had a lot going on when this thing was released, and on top of that, we were both old and sleepy. So we decided that we would come back, and we've already covered Part 3, if you've listened to that or watched that one. And so we're coming back, going to cover Parts 1 and 2. This was meant to be a more casual, retrospective look on the series, though you probably wouldn't know it by my show notes. So, speaking of casual, and hey, Jonesy, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm doing well, man. How are you doing this week?
It's weird because we're recording this on a Monday night, and it feels
it's a special Monday edition here.
Yeah, and didn't we used to record on Mondays pretty regularly? Maybe
yeah.
not.
No, well, for a while we were so erratic. It was either Sunday or Monday, desperately trying to get out on Tuesdays.
Yep.
So it was all over the place.
Yeah, so it just feels weird to be here Monday night. And we're, potentially doing another show tomorrow. We got another one Thursday. We're going to spend a lot of time together.
Yeah, we do. But you know what? It's just par for the course these days.
Yep. Well,
we don't really have any news today, though.
No news.
Yeah, because it's Monday. Nothing happens on Mondays.
Nothing ever happens on Mondays.
Well, very little happens on Mondays. But we do have some Patreon news. We have a hearty and a warm welcome back to Amanda, who was able to rejoin the Patreon at the Green Milk tier. So welcome back, Amanda. We love seeing your smiling face come across the feed. And then, of course, a special thanks to our Plus a Little Extra folks, Mike Borda and Kathy. Appreciate the continued support.
Yeah.
If you're interested in Patreon and all of the exclusive content that comes with it, and Albert just posted, the only place that we're going to post the video from Celebration is for Patreon folks in the Patreon feed. So while we released the audio to everybody yesterday or the day before, whatever it was, I pumped that out. The video is exclusive for Patreon. So cantinacast.com/Patreon. You can see all the different things. And that's at the After Dark tier and up. You have access to that video. The only trick with that is that you have to use the Patreon app, though. If you have a normal podcatcher that you like to subscribe or use that to subscribe to the feed, the videos don't come across that way. Only the audio files do. It's a Patreon limitation. There's nothing we could do about it. But head over to the app on the desktop app or the actual app, and you should be able to find it and pull the link.
Yep. And that camera angle is very interesting because you get to look up our noses the entire time that we're recording that. So
fantastic. I
mean, talk about an exclusive, in-depth look at each of us. No, it's really not that bad.
Of our nasal cavity.
Of our nasal cavities. It's right. Not that bad. It's really not. I was kind of joking there. But
that was an adventure to edit, though.
Oh, the audio, yeah. And that's
Did you get a chance to listen to the audio feed that I was able to do?
I listened to the first maybe 5 minutes. I thought you did a remarkable job, honestly.
You got to get past the very beginning, yeah, because
it gets worse.
No, it gets a lot better actually. Oh. Yeah, I couldn't get Mark. Mark was a little further away from the mic at the very start, so he was very echoey. But later on, everybody kind of got more comfortable. I was able to do a lot more with it. So pretty pleased with where we're able to get with it.
Yeah. And that's, again, more limitations on the stuff that was advertised that we didn't really see there. So,
but in true Cantina Cast fashion, we made good enough even better.
Yes. That's what the show's all about. Good enough.
Yeah, I don't know that we've ever said that before, but
not publicly.
No, usually it's good enough is good enough.
Yeah, good enough is good enough. All right, well, let's do this. We've got a number of things to discuss here with parts 1 and 2. Again, more casual. I tried not to do every single scene by scene. I think Jonesy probably appreciated that. At least that's what I told him I wasn't going to do. And then I cranked out the notes and I was like, wow, these are kind of long. So I don't know where we'll probably land somewhere in about an hour, 15 hour and 30 minutes. I don't think it'll be a 2-hour show, but you never know.
Right. We've said that before.
Yeah. Called me a liar on that one. Okay. Well, let's talk about parts 1 and 2. And again, we've already seen these, but we're going to pretend as though we have not seen part 3. So everything we're going to get right as far as predictions go from here on out. let's talk about the beginning first off, and I'm going to touch a very sensitive subject, I think, and only because it was relevant to us at the time that we were at Star Wars Celebration. So one of our good friends, Danny, was it Figueroa
Mhm.
was his last name, right?
Yeah.
He's a writer. He's a listener to the show. We were supporting him and his sister there. They were doing a show on Star Wars as well, a panel. But he actually tweeted out something that he was a little bothered by the fact that they had released the Order 66 footage, I guess the first episode with the Order 66 footage in there on the cusp of what had just happened, the tragedy that happened here in Texas, and that created a lot of let's say spotlight on him, good and bad, for
Yeah.
saying that. And it was just a comment more than anything that maybe they could have held off, they could have done something. He took a lot of flack for that, and unfortunately, his Twitter was blowing up, and he had a lot of people against supporting him. And I completely understand where he's coming from. All that said, when you go back and watch the episode now, I don't know if you caught this, but it now says there are certain scenes in this fictional series that some viewers may find upsetting.
Yeah, that was an
So
interesting caveat there to have added when we were rewatching this.
yeah, and so this is good though because I think he wasn't the only one. There were a lot of people that were still very hypersensitive to what had just happened, rightfully so. And for Disney at least to put that in, even if it's post, right? You can talk. This is very similar. I was having a conversation today on another forum about John Boyega's, when they pulled him off the Star Wars poster for The Force Awakens. So they didn't pull him off; they kind of shrunk him down
Yeah.
in China. And what I'd mentioned was, look, they made a mistake. I think they have openly said that we could have done things better there. But it's 5 years ago, more than that now, isn't it? 7 years ago.
Yeah.
They self corrected when they came out with Last Jedi posters and the Rise of Skywalker. He's pretty large on the Rise of Skywalker posters. So they learned their lesson. And I think and I don't know if it's a learned lesson, but they try to make things better. And I think what they've done here is acknowledge that as well. That scene, taken out of context, and certainly for some people that are sensitive to those types of things, again, rightfully so, it probably makes sense that they would put something like that, right? We were in a different time back in 2000 and what was Jedi or what was Revenge of the Sith? 2003?
2005.
Sorry.
Yep.
2005, different time. Not entirely different, but different enough. So I kind of like that they put that in there. I think it acknowledges that they're not just going to blow that away or turn a blind eye, deaf eye, blind ear, whatever it is, and not acknowledge it. And I think they've done that, and they've done it with the right way to do it. I think you would throw something up like that. So
Yeah, sometimes you get snake bit by the timing of some things, and it's just an unfortunate. I mean, gosh, it's such a tragic event that happened. Of course, everyone in Texas, we all feel it. Been through Uvalde a number of times, and so it's really difficult to even just get your arms around this stuff. But with some of this content, it's done so far in the future. There's no ill intent for a lot of it, so that they at least did something, and I think a very unobtrusive way of at least trying to, hedge that a bit. I think was the right thing to do, rather than go and do some wholesale edit after the fact. And because it is part of the story. It's part of the story. It's already been told. It's going part of the story of what's going to happen later on, I presume, with Reva. But still, to not stick your head in the sand and say, well, current events and fantasy don't really, there shouldn't be any correlation with it, which I'm sure a lot of energy was spent talking about that type of thing. But
when there was actually, I was sorry to cut you off, but
Mm-hmm.
there's actually the Hollywood Reporter did an interview with the writer. And when this actually came up, it was I think this article came out Saturday of all days. It was on Saturday or Friday last week, where they were interviewing him, and they asked him the question, "Hey, did you know about this?" And it was kind of the same thing. It was like, okay, it was a full steam kind of engine, right? It was a ship that was already too big to re-steer at that point,
right.
But the minute they had an opportunity to go back and do all of that, they at least did something. So.
Right.
They were aware. They were consciously aware of it. But to your point, he made the comment about it is part of the story, unfortunately. And if you look back on it, again, I'm not downplaying anything, but if you look back at the footage, and I was more aware of it now, right, because of what had happened. But they don't show, as far as I could tell, anyways. They didn't show children being hurt. Yeah, it was all the adults, which again doesn't make it right or wrong. But the point is, it is fictional. It is a tragic moment, and we all and the cooler, right or wrong, the fact that that scene has resonated with us, as fictional as it is. To know that Anakin Skywalker did that, and to see the tragedy that happens there in this fictional world, it's still relevant. I mean, it has an impact on us, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, in comparison, and I know we need to get to the show, but in comparison, on National Women's Day, one of my favorite comic shops and one of my favorite comic artists, announced a special variant of a Spider-Man comic that had women fawning all over Peter Parker / Spider-Man.
Mm.
And that was poor planning, and that was poor foresight, and probably a bit dated. I don't know what the intent of the cover is, so I don't want to comment too much on any of that. But that one, I made a comment on Twitter and tagged both of them, and of course the comic shop replied, and I don't like how they handled it. They were very much, well, we're victim of timing type of thing. Well, no, guys. I mean, these things are pretty well broadcast and scheduled and timed and all that.
It's at least 3 months out, right? Because you can put your orders in 3 months out.
Right. Yeah.
And covers are usually around.
Well, and this was an exclusive one, so it has a little bit different terms of when they release it. But they had choices there. They could have moved it by a day or something like that, But that one I was a little more critical about, because that's one you can plan for in comparison with this, where you've got it in the can, it's done, and then you have something that no one would want to happen, much less predict that would happen any given day. I know it happens a lot in the U.S., unfortunately, but. Yeah, it's just not something. But anyway, like when I compared these things, that was kind of what I compared it to. And again, they're not apples and oranges, but still a very important day in our, of recognizing women and empowering women. We've kind of regressed in this one area where I just thought it was a missed opportunity, and just unfortunate in that kind of respect.
Yeah. And in comic books, man, if you go back and look at some of the
well, and they still do it a lot.
The writing and some of the covers and the artwork inside, and you're like, wow, I don't know if I should be reading this. Okay, enough of the.
I don't know if my kids should be reading it.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's move on from this. Let's talk about. I want your opinion on the recap, though, because this, for whatever reason, it generated a lot of people talking about.
It's really.
Does it belong? Does it not belong?
Really elbowed some people, huh?
Yeah.
I liked it. I actually thought it was really well done, and I think it was important. I think it was important for a couple of things. One, they really got to highlight the moments that they want you to know, which sets up. So Qui-Gon is a great example. Why did they spend so much time on Qui-Gon, especially maybe not him getting killed and telling to train the boy, but the Yoda mission for Obi-Wan as they're ending Revenge of the Sith, right?
Right.
I mean, so those types of things, again, it helps you remember of why Obi-Wan is going to behave certain ways, but also it helps set up all that emotional weight that's starting to pay off as you get into part 3, right? And as you get in the end of part 2, when you have all of that weight that comes in about Obi-Wan learning that, Anakin or Vader's, still kicking, that recap helps you re-cement that. And I think also it really helps you understand that opening sequence when they are in the temple and the clones are storming the castle. I think it really helps set all of that up. But I like that they were able to identify the moments that they really wanted to highlight. And all of the things that I think as viewers, it was important for us to have that reset and understand what are the moments that they find the most useful for us to remember and recall. And we also have to remember some of the people watching the show probably weren't of age to watch Revenge of the Sith. I mean, it's been 17 years.
Right.
So while they might be familiar with it, and then some people haven't watched it in forever, everyone's not like us, Albert. I don't know. It's disappointing. I know it's disappointing, but it's the truth. So I liked it. I think it worked. And I got to be honest with you, seeing Jedi fight clones in a different, through a different lens and a different thing with the kids and what all was going on. I liked it. It didn't make this Jedi seem like such punks getting shot in the back. Yep. They were actually putting up a fight too. So I think if anything, it helped strengthen Revenge of the Sith and maybe help improve it in a couple of ways as far as all of the other Jedi, if you will.
Yeah.
So how about you? How'd you respond to the opening sequence?
Well, I would agree. I think you hit the nail on
the head. We weren't
head.
expecting it though, right?
No, not at all. In fact, and it's so different. Like as we were watching it, I remember we were thinking, I think we were talking about this. This is before we fell asleep. We were talking about how there were shots that they used that seemed like they zoomed in, right? They put a focus in on some of some of the characters and some of the events that were happening. All this was purposeful, right? And I think more than anything, it is to kind of set the stage for a Qui-Gon Jinn appearance. Again, whether it's a Force ghost or we hear just the disembodied voice of some sort. I think we're setting that up because there was a very heavy emphasis on Qui-Gon Jinn. But I think overall too, I mean, I think the biggest thing is you think about where Disney Plus is right now. You think about where Star Wars is, where Lucasfilm is, and the number of people that they've got now coming in and watching these shows. And you're right, a lot of them are from the Mando universe.
Yeah.
We've got a lot of people that have been here forever, but since 2015, when Disney came in, they've continued to grow and expand that. We've got anime people coming in, we've got TV watchers program coming in, we've got people that have grown up on the sequel trilogies who, yeah, they may or may not be looking at the original or even the prequel trilogies with maybe a quick glance over. And I think because, and this is not feedback, but if you think about where the sequel trilogy ended and how it was sort of connected to, the original and maybe to the prequel in some ways, there's a lot of people, this is all new to them. And so I think a good refresher, I don't expect that we'll get this with every series. I think that's where people were really worried about, that this isn't Star Wars, right? You don't do a recap of everything that came. This feels too much like TV and yada, yada, yada. I think given the context and the story they're trying to tell, that it is a very close knit tale between Anakin and Obi-Wan Kenobi and Padme and Leia and what's his name? I'm drawing a blank. Anyways, the core group of people that we all expect to be in the story, it's really about them. And so a lot of what they were showing was just that focus on the relationship that existed there for them. Right. Hey, before we get any further, I just want to point out we're in the presence of greatness. David Lozano from Star Wars Stuff Podcast is with us tonight.
Hey, so, David.
Hi. Yeah, we ran into this dude. And I think we were buying my $38 hot dog. Wasn't that?
Yeah, we were.
Him?
Yeah, he had a mask on. I didn't recognize him at first, and thank goodness he had his Star Wars Stuff shirt on, because I was like, oh my gosh, it didn't register right away. He's like, hey, Jonesy. I'm like, who?
Yeah, right.
But no, it's really cool. Yeah, these guys are down in San Antonio, so they're kind of close to us as well. So it's super cool.
My hometown.
That's right.
San Antonio Spurs. What's up? Okay. Anyway, all right. But all right. So I don't mind it. I don't expect that we're going to have it. I think it makes sense, and I think so much of that. I hate to get on a soapbox, and I'm so early, but so much of the feedback and criticism that I'm seeing of this show, it's like based on one or two episodes. Like you've not seen the entire series yet.
Right.
Until then, I mean, you can have an opinion, but my goodness, these people are dying on hills left and right to for the silliest things, honestly. And I think once the series is done, especially with this, I think we'll look back at this and go, okay, it makes sense, right? Given the story that they told, the context of the story that they told, this makes total sense that they would give us this kind of an introduction thing. And I wouldn't be surprised, honestly, for something like Rogue One to have it. You think, I hate to look ahead, but like something for Andor, it is a self-contained story. I know it was very successful, widely successful, but there are people that may not have seen it. And suddenly you're going to introduce this whole series based on one character who bit the bullet right at the very end. They could do something like that as well. And I would think that would be okay too. Now,
it would be interesting, yeah, because you'd have to flash. It'd almost be like you'd have to be telling a story in the past,
right,
or something like that. That'd be kind of interesting. Yeah.
All right. Well,
so I think the one thing. So just one maybe last bit.
Sure.
So think about part 3 when Vader is dragging Obi-Wan through the fire. It's so important for the visual reference in part 1, at the beginning of part 1, of what happened to Anakin or Vader, I guess, at the time.
Yeah. Right.
And what happened on the shores of the lava and on Mustafar, because it's such a strong parallel, of course, and you could just feel. To me, it just made Vader all the more angry by the time we got to part 3. And so those are the things you kind of go back, and again, we've got that retrospective. This is exactly what you're talking about. If you don't have that to kind of go back as you go through the series here, you think back and be like, okay, because when I watched it again today before we came on air, and I was like, it's actually better than the first time or than the last time I watched it. And I liked that the preview was there because it really does set up a number of things in the first 3 parts, not just the Vader stuff. So I think it was really important to do that and kind of remind people of some characters, Bail Organa and so forth too. You're on mute, buddy.
And I'm off mute. Hi, my mom says, this is from Lauren. My mom is a new Star Wars fan, so she said the recap was really helpful.
There you go.
David says, "Go Spurs, go." Sorry, got to do that. And Lauren, the Mavs fan, says Albert is baiting the Mavs fans right now.
Now, what do the Mavs and the Spurs have in common? Both are sitting at home watching the playoffs.
Yeah, that's very true. But we'll be back.
Hey, the
And
Rockets are
greater
right there.
numbers.
Rockets are right there with them. So
Yeah,
go Texas.
yeah. Way to go,
Hey, at least
Texas.
women's softball and the Texas baseball team still in the College World Series.
There you go.
Maybe
Get
not
that
much
going.
longer, but we're still there. Anyway,
All right.
Part one.
Let's see. Yeah, let's get on with the show. Order 66. There's we've talked about this, that first child that they show there, the taller one that's standing there. She looks female. She looks black. I'm going to go out on a limb, and still say that's Reva, and we're going to get more of that backstory. And it's interesting too, as we're watching this a little bit later. We get this whole fixation on her, right? She's completely fixated on Kenobi, and there was a couple things that I missed, to be honest, that we haven't talked about in part 3. But yeah, it does feel like she is. We're going to get that backstory. Maybe I'm trying to think. Maybe Kenobi is part of this, right? There was something very specific about Kenobi did or didn't do while Order 66 was going on. I mean, he wasn't even around there, but maybe it's on that return trip when they went back to the temple, when him and Yoda were there, busting chops out in the front.
throwing lightsabers through chests.
Yeah, exactly.
Good times.
Good times. Maybe it was there. Maybe there's something in that scene or prior to that or just afterwards where she felt burned by Obi-Wan personally. But more on that as we kind of go on. I did enjoy seeing more of Order 66. Honestly, I could, as tragic as that is, I'd love to see more of that because I love the fact, like you made a good point. It felt like the Jedi were just kind of rolled over, and it has to feel that way to some extent, right?
And I think that was part of the point. They were completely kind of unawares, right?
Exactly.
So
exactly.
The way that Lucas did it still makes sense to me, but there should have been some more resistance, like what we saw with Yoda and Obi-Wan. We just didn't get it on screen.
Yep. Let's jump over to the next scene that I want to talk about, which is the saloon scene where we get the Inquisitors show up. This is our first introduction to Rupert Friend. What did you think about his performance? I don't know that we've actually had a chance to dig into it, but compared to the Grand Inquisitor on Rebels, it seems different.
It's quite different, yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know that it bothered me. And this is coming from someone who's seen those episodes a billion times.
Right.
I don't know that I'm bothered by it.
Billions. Yeah. I'm not either. And I think it gives a different edge to it. He's it's a bit monologue-ish, I guess, which I don't mind in this case. I think it was actually really interesting to hear him go through all of that. I mean, he's just baiting the Jedi out of sorts, but also at the same time, he's trying to get his point across in a really different way. And I think this is why, Reva just stands out so much in comparison with Fifth Brother and the Grand Inquisitor, and maybe even Second Sister, or not second, but what was she? Fourth Sister? Yeah, there we go. So I think that's it. It just helps her stand apart even more. But it is a different Grand Inquisitor characterization than what we had in Rebels, and even what we had in the comic books. But I'm kind of okay with that. I think Rupert Friend does a good job, and aside from the appearance, it's not bothering me any which way. It doesn't bother me at all, actually. And again, from the trailer to what we got here in the first part is very similar, and most of all of that, I think it just works. I mean, the script works for the character, and the way that he's delivering it is very odd. I can't find the word exactly what it is or what that delivery is doing, but it's having an effect on me. I just can't quite find the right word for it.
Okay. Well, keep us posted. There's a moment in there where I think where Reva's talking about, are they talking about her fixation on Kenobi? I mean, that comes out a little bit later. But the one part that really stuck out was the line of "You are reckless," and I couldn't help but think of what is it, Empire
Yoda.
Strikes Back with Yoda, telling Luke that he was reckless as well. Later, she says that when she captures Kenobi, she's going to get what she's owed, as though there is something owed there. And it doesn't sound like she's out to kill him in cold blood. It sounds like she doesn't want to take him to Vader and let Vader do whatever he's going to do with him, torture him and eventually kill him. Maybe not. Maybe just torture him the rest of his life. Who knows? But yeah, all of that just are all kind of signs pointing to that. We'll probably get more of that here in the next 3 episodes as well.
What's interesting is even from the very beginning, Reva's behavior, and what we see this in part 2 as well, she actually mimics Vader much more closely than she does Grand Inquisitor or the Fifth Brother.
Yeah.
Because she's ruthless. We get this really early on with, she feels this is a waste of time. She just wants to jump. She's very much like Anakin or Vader in this way, right?
Yep.
Where it's very brash. We should just be in here, punching people, we'll saber people to death, and we'll take names later. We're going to use fear and aggression. She's very much basically in the Empire. So again, it continues to put more emphasis on where the hell is all this coming from with her. And I think that just continues to really snowball here, the more scenes that we have with Reva.
Yep. Let's talk about the exciting Kenobi, the meat packer role that he has.
Pretty stellar.
Pretty stellar. Exciting stuff.
That's quite the butcher knife he's got there.
Feels like my job from day to day, just cutting meat all day. Some of this we called, I think, based on the...
Is that how you feed the kids, too? You just slice a little slice of meat off and let them fight for it?
Yep. But we called a lot of this out, I think, going into this from the trailer alone, that he is living this mundane life. The only thing I think that I didn't see more of that I was hoping to see, and again, I'm fine with the show the way it is, but if it were me, I don't know that we've seen enough of him. I thought we'd see him be suffering a little bit more. And I think part of it is probably because...
In what way, if you don't mind me? Yeah.
Well, the fact that he's living this life that he's living living a life of a hermit, not having to succumb to the Empire, the loss, the defeat, the number of friends that he lost, especially Anakin Skywalker, blaming himself for some of that. I think I wanted to see more of that.
Okay.
It's been 10 years. So I'll give him that. There's probably been enough time to heal. When you think about where Yoda's at, right? The contrast to where Yoda's at this point in the comics, right before Empire Strikes Back, or in the Empire Strikes Back, where Luke shows up, he's carrying a lot of that, and I think we get that probably fortunately, because it's a comic book and there's time to kind of expand on that. But I guess I was expecting some, if not some of the same initial, or some of the same insight into Kenobi. I don't know that we're going to, it doesn't bother me. Like I said, it's not criticism, it's not feedback, because I still feel like it's there. I think it's going to manifest even more, because I think he was probably at peace, at least to some extent, with it. And now, given where he's at after part 3, I think he's bottomed out. And I think that's all going to finally come out. I think it's going to spill out here.
I took it all a very different way than that. I took it that he's very much defeated. And I think you see it throughout part 1 and 2, and then it manifests itself really in part 3. But you just see that he's defeated. He doesn't want to get involved. He has one task. It's the only thing that he thinks he can do, or maybe do well, because he's failed at the others. I don't know that it's healing. I think it's just he's been completely defeated, and now there's nothing left but just to do this one task and then probably die afterwards, right? I mean, when we see him interact with Bail, and we see him really interact even with Leia in some regard, and with Owen, I mean, he just doesn't have that fight, doesn't have that spark anymore. Mm-hmm. And he's pleading, for Master Qui-Gon more than one occasion. And so I really do feel like he feels more alone and defeated and desperate for any kind of connection back to, that's going to give him hope or give him that spark. I mean, because that's the part that's missing from Kenobi, right? It's that kind of twinkle in his eye that he's always had, right? That little, small bit of humor that was always lurking behind, just underneath the surface, or that little smile or smirk. And, it's just not there anymore. It's just been completely taken from him. And I think that's the main, if you go back and watch like Revenge of the Sith, the opening sequence and all of that, another happy landing type of thing. You don't get any of that. Mm-hmm. There were plenty of opportunities for it. He could have said it when he dropped Leia on the ground. That would have been great. But
yeah.
So I think, so anyway, I just kind of had the other respect to it. And I think it just continues to show how deep into despair he's gone, especially when he was just reeling in part 3.
Yeah, I don't disagree with any of that, honestly. I think all of that was shown to us. What I'm saying is he's not said anything, and he's not had anybody to talk to. Yeah. I think it's going to come out, though. I think we're going to get, I'm all for show me, don't tell me whenever it makes sense. But I really want to hear him say it. I get he's down and out. I get he's lost his connection with the Force. I get that he's not the same, confident, overconfident at times kind of person. But I need to hear him. I want to hear. I was expecting to hear some of this. And again, I don't. Again, he doesn't have anybody to speak to about all this stuff, right? So
We got a little bit with Bale, but yeah, I see where you're going. He really needs he needs a Qui-Gon or a Yoda.
Yep.
To have that kind of conversation. I think Bale was pretty close, though. I think we did get a good flavor of it with Bale.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree with you on that front. It would be good to hear all of it come out.
And he's living in this cave, which again is another sign that he's not. I mean, I don't know if this is just him laying low, and he's gone to the extreme. I'll go live in a rock somewhere, I guess. But
he's literally living under a rock.
He's literally living under a rock at this point. So I don't necessarily have a problem with that.
The cave actually makes a lot of sense to me. It's probably cooler in the cave with the Tatooine heat and all of that. So realistically, it actually makes more sense to me.
Yeah,
but yeah, he's not put roots in the ground, right? He doesn't have a hovel like he does in A New Hope, right? He doesn't have a home.
I'm wondering if they're going to show that too, like that transition now. Because I'm wondering when is he going to get that?
I think so. I mean, I think by the end of the series, we're going to see Kenobi turn around, right? And Obi-Wan is going to get to that place. And I think that's maybe when we see a Qui-Gon come into play. But again, I think what we talked about the last episode for part 3 was Obi-Wan really has to really find that spark again, that reason to go. And he has to turn that light switch on himself before any of these other things are going to be able to do it. And then I think we'll see all of the, basically the man we see in A New Hope kind of start to emerge again.
I think it's more of he just didn't want to have to register for a mailbox, and then they can find him. And
true. I mean, you don't need a license to ride in a Yopi. You might need one for a land speeder.
That's right. He's just laying low. He's off the grid.
That's right.
What did you think about Tika? There's a story in my head that Tika is like having some affair with what's her name?
With Peli.
Yeah, Peli Motto.
Hey, Peli's probably in her parliament by now. So yeah, for those who may not catch names, Tika's the Jawa that steals parts from Obi-Wan's evaporator and then sells it back to him, which Obi-Wan's pretty good spirits about.
Yep. And he's the Jolly Christmas elf, Jawa, because he brought the T-16 Skyhopper toy for him to play with, which he then now passes on to Luke Skywalker. That scene in New Hope, like I understand he's supposed to be younger, but he almost turns like 8 years old when he's got it. If you ever look at him, he's he's just short of making noises on camera as he's doing that, and then he kind of runs off or whatever. But
all right.
Anyways, that was.
No, I mean, it actually quite aligns with what they show us in this when Obi-Wan's watching Luke pretend he's pod racing, presumably, or flying or whatever it might be, and
maybe that was the motivation.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely see the correlation there, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that's a good tie. I mean, when you're, Obi-Wan's whole point of view is that Luke needs to understand that there's more than just this little tiny piece of this sandball of a rock in the outer rim, right? And that's the whole idea, is to start exposing him to these other things. So it's not just, it's not culture shock when he leaves home, right? It's like going to college for the first time. If you haven't been anywhere except home, going to college and staying in a dorm and all of that is just completely, crazy. Or the first time you travel to, I'm from Texas. I grew up here. But when I moved to the Northeast, man, I wasn't ready for that transition. I'd never been to the Northeast, right?
Yeah.
And wasn't ready for all the jokes about my accent and stuff. But yeah.
It's like when you go to your first keg party too.
I don't know about those types of things.
Yeah. It's like, whoa, people act like this?
Right. Yeah. Just thought they were on TV.
Yeah. No, you're right. It is. I mean, he's trying to expose them to the larger world that's out there, and get him prepared for it, get him wondering and wanting to do that. And it doesn't help that all of his friends are heading off too. So all of that starts to kind of build up and play into him eventually wanting to get out of there. So
now, something else that kind of triggered when I was watching it today, when I was when I was watching the Owen and Ben scene, was he wants to know if he's showing, but he's giving him this toy. It's maybe not so much of getting exposure, but I would really like to try to fly that. I would really like to try to do these things. And I think maybe that's where Owen was going, that if Luke starts to show enough interest in this, then he will put himself in the cockpit, and then he will, presumably Obi-Wan would be able to see how he's progressing and what he's doing and how he's, kind of like what they did with, or what Qui-Gon did with Anakin.
Mm-hmm.
So, some of it's not just a sparking imagination, but it's also like, I'd like to get behind the wheel of that thing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's possible for sure. Let's talk about Nari. And Nari being the Jedi that eventually finds Kenobi.
The Jedi, not Jedi.
Yeah.
I would totally be doing the magnets and stuff too if I had the tech to do it. I'd be like, hell yeah, that's awesome.
No, you're talking about what's his name? I'm talking about Nari, not
not Nari. I'm thinking of like Haja. Oh, Nari the Jedi.
Haja, yeah. No, Nari.
Oh yeah. I'm sorry, I skipped ahead.
But no, more on Haja later. Or Haja. Nari is a Jedi that found Kenobi on Tatooine. And again, for the sake of storytelling, it's probably just, plot convenience more than anything. But I do have questions about whether or not how he would have know where he's at.
Well, he said he saw him in the crowd. So it almost makes you seem like it's happenstance that they come across each other.
It's a little, and again, criticism for criticism. It's very convenient. I do find it almost impossible. Like, and I say that because, and then of all times, he finds him in the middle of a night, unless he's been tracking him, which, okay, maybe. But he finds him, he runs across him in the middle of the night, and runs into him while he's in this little area or whatever.
Especially when he has to cross the desert with no cover in sight for a very extended period of time. Yeah, I agree with you there.
Unless he was just watching his patterns and realized, he goes to this particular rock crop formation here every night on the way home, so I'll wait there, kind of thing. Again, it's a suspension of disbelief, and I'm not gonna. I just was still scratching my head even watching today. It's like, this guy is really good, or it is just a miracle that he was able to run into Kenobi and identify him. And if he would have identified him then 10 years ago, I don't know how old he is. He looks to be mid-20s, maybe.
Yeah, he would have been probably still a Padawan.
Yeah. So, I mean, how much, of course, Kenobi is, well known, and his face was all over the place during the Clone Wars. So,
and if he was a teenager, presumably he would have, they would have known who Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin Skywalker were, because they were kind of the poster children for the Jedi for a time.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, I didn't catch that one line though. When I watched it today and I heard it again, like, I saw you in the crowd, and I was like, okay, well, at least I understand how we identified who it was. But again, I'm with you though. It's very convenient. It was a plot device.
Sure.
But have to
Lots
let some
of
of
those
that
in
stuff
Star
go. Yeah, maybe a couple here and there.
In all of the movies, thank you. Let's remind ourselves of that.
I don't know what you're talking about. The original trilogy is perfect in every way.
Okay, you say so. Let's talk about Leia.
We got to fight about it?
Let's talk about Leia of Alderaan. I know we've talked about her a lot.
Let's talk about Alderaan.
Well, okay. What do you want to talk about Alderaan?
It's really pretty.
It's not new to me. I'm telling you, man. I got land in Alderaan in SWTOR. I'll go there every night, my friends.
You might want to sell high.
Right.
It's got to
sell that property here in the next couple, 15, 20,000 years.
I've got an insider tip that it's things aren't going to end well.
Eminent domain is going to be exercised by the.
That's right. Yeah, they're going to put a railroad through it. But I like the we talked a little bit, I think, about a week or so ago. But I like the aesthetic. I have listened more to the music. The music in part 1 was actually much more prominent than definitely in part 3. I think that was intentional. And part 2 also had a lot of music. I heard the theme a lot more often, by the way, too. At least the main melody for Obi-Wan. And so
in the Alderaan music?
No, well, just kind of within the episode.
Okay,
sorry,
okay,
but the music in the Alderaan scenes and stuff was just it was perfect. It was very much the picturesque planet that we always expected it to be, and a bit of this utopian society that we always assumed that it was. No weapons and things like that, which is definitely not true. They have weapons at this moment, even though they don't really draw them on the guard. But But I just liked it. It was really cool seeing it really for the first time in all its glory, and it's really in its real prominent heyday. So I think that was important to see, and the dialogue with Bail was really good here with Leia. But Leia, let's talk about Leia of Alderaan.
Well, I just on that point, the other note I was going to make is the contrast, right? The stark difference between where Luke's life is at and where Leia's life is at. It's there in front of you. We get to see it firsthand. We've always known it's been there, but seeing it in that perspective was very, very interesting. She's just living the best.
Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt. I love the contrast too. Leia is being brought up to be a leader, whereas Luke is being brought up to be a hermit.
Right.
And so I love that contrast too, about especially where they're going to go, because I think that actually strengthens, Luke's story a little bit later on of what are the things you have to overcome whenever you're thrust into galaxy, but also from Leia's perspective of, when you've lived this life and all of a sudden now you're kidnapped and you're on the run and you don't know who to trust. I mean, everything's kind of done, but you still have these qualities that come out even in the midst of all of these challenges. It's really cool to see where they're at this point in their lives.
Mm-hmm.
And fun story about the little actress. She just turned 10, by the way.
Yep.
So for all the people that say she doesn't look 10, well, she's officially 10 now.
No, yeah, she's 10.
Yeah.
You can tell. There is a moment here also, it's a personal kind of story for me. When she's up in that tree and she's watching the ships go by and calling them out and stuff, that really resonated with me. And this is for David or anybody that's from San Antonio or in that area. So I grew up there's a lot of Air Force bases in San Antonio. Some of them have kind of gone away as we've kind of brought down our military presence just in general. But I grew up over an area by Old Pearsall Road, and it's almost smack dab in the middle. It's in South San Antonio, smack dab in the middle of Kelly Air Force Base and Lackland Air Force, two of the largest Air Force bases that were in San Antonio. And there were moments when I was a kid and I would go in the tree and I would do the exact same thing. I kid you not. As the planes were taking off, I'd be like, oh, there's the F-14s. There's the TI-88s. There's the C-5s, the C-4s. We had C-130s coming in. And it was just cool to watch these things all day long because there wasn't a whole lot to do, right? But go in there and keep track of all the different types of planes that we'd see. And I remember going, like when my dad would come in, I'd run in and tell him that I still remember when they started flying the B-1B bombers out of there, the stealth bombers.
Oh, wow.
They started flying those out, and that was super exciting. And of course, we went to all the air shows and all that. Anyways, it's just a personal story. It resonated with me because it was exactly the same thing I did. And as a kid, you do learn all of that stuff. You become, at least I was, and I was running around with a bunch of military brats because they were all kind of in the area and the public schools. So they were all into it too. So it was just a thing that you would sit there and do airplane watching and talk about, oh, I saw this plane, or you would never believe what landed, or I saw one take off, or this one flew over our house and nearly shattered the windows because it was so dang loud. So
yeah, and
very
actually,
cool stuff.
I'm glad you mentioned it because I grew up north of where Albert lives now, which is near Fort Hood Army Base, and so we had something similar but with helicopters because we would see all of the Apaches and the Hueys and all of the stuff going in and out of the base. So we'd have very much the same types of things. You'd have them fly them in formation, and not near as exciting as the air shows and stuff like that. We'd go see the F-18 Hornets and all that, but it was still very similar. I'm glad you brought that up because I hadn't really thought about that.
Oh, and I saw Top Gun over the weekend. Phenomenal movie. We got to talk about that at some point. Oh, he worked at Brooks. Nice. Yeah, that's just one of many. There's still Randolph and a couple other ones out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need to talk about Top Gun Maverick in the context of The Force Awakens. That's a show.
Okay.
We'll write that down. And if you've seen Top Gun Maverick, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
I should probably go see it this weekend. That's what I know what we're talking about.
Yeah, you're going to have to at some point. So there was the mention of the Aquilon Rangers. I only wanted to bring it up because this is something that was from the original drafts of Star Wars, the scripts. If you've ever seen that concept art of Ralph McQuarrie where he's got what would eventually, I think, become Luke Skywalker. There were bits and pieces that were moved into Han and Luke separately, but at one point there's that one image where there's that guy holding the lightsaber and he's got the mask on, and then Vader's standing there in front of him and he's kind of crouched down. You can kind of see him from the back and to the side. That was supposed to be an Aquilon Ranger, and so it was cool that they did that callback, at least in name, as they were watching this one.
Did you have any? So with Leia being such an outdoorsy kid, did you draw any connections to like Rey in The Rise of Skywalker?
I didn't until you just said that, because I think of Rise of Skywalker running through the woods kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And where
Someone
Leia,
should put those images together. That would be kind of cool.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and Leia was out there. Now, granted, I mean, they're on the run and hiding and stuff too. But
Sure.
So I get that. But it as I was watching it today, it really did start to recall a lot of those scenes.
Yep. No, I that's a good point. So there's a woman on Instagram. She goes by Star Wars Parallels. Go sub to her account. Go follow her. She is absolutely freaking amazing. She's out of Australia, and she takes footage or mostly images. She doesn't really do video, but mostly images, and she draws parallels between the shows that we're watching now and stuff that was said or done in prequels and sequels, all the movies, other TV shows. And her content is amazing, and she just doesn't stop. Like, she just keeps cranking this stuff out. And she's done some really cool parallels between the Kenobi series so far and a number of the movies and scenes and all that. So
Awesome.
I imagine at some point she'll probably get around to that one because there are some similarities there between the
Let's
two.
go check that out. Yeah.
Yep.
Star Wars Parallels.
Star Wars Parallels is the name.
Awesome.
There was a question that came in the chat from Justin. He said, do y'all think we'll see any hint of Leia having Force powers?
I think we already are, to be honest with you.
Yeah. I think if the question is whether or not we're going to,
See some of the traditional Force powers of moving objects or...
Yeah, I don't think we'll see that. Or if the question is whether we'll see like just in your face kind of stuff, right? I don't think we're getting, I think what we're getting is very subverted, very subtle in terms of what she's doing. If you watch, and I don't know if we have it in the show notes, but there were moments that I was just keeping a little tick about how many times she was doing or saying things that felt like she was probably tapping into the Force. Again, even though she may not be consciously doing it.
Right.
A good example is later on when she's like calling out Obi-Wan Kenobi for what he's doing wrong and what he's trying to do. And, she's like reading him. And now, don't get me wrong, 10-year-olds will do that just in general.
Right.
But she has a gift somewhere there, and I think she is displaying it, even if it is a little subtle at times.
Yeah, it's definitely this empathic type of ability.
Yep.
And we definitely see it. Of course, she puts it on display with her cousin. She's pretty specific.
Oh yeah, no, that's a good point too. I think that's an extension. That's exactly what she does to Kenobi a little bit later. That was our first preview of what she's able to do.
Right.
And then she takes it to the next level with Kenobi, of all people. So
yeah, and of course, we've seen it a couple of times when Obi-Wan's thinking about her mother. Yeah.
Yep. Let's see. All right. Well, let's move on to Ben and Owen. There's been a lot that's been said about this scene even before we saw it, and the memes continue to this day. I saw a new one just yesterday that I had not seen before. But
they'll never get old.
They don't get old. There's so many examples now, and it's extended on it's extended to other characters beyond just Kenobi, right? It's like,
oh yeah,
anytime
we have cross pollinated and what's called crossover events, basically.
It's a crossover event. Yep. Let's see. There's this was. I guess, do you have any new thoughts about this scene? I don't know if there was anything else that I picked up on it. I did love the line about "I didn't do it for you." After the Inquisitors walked off, the way he delivers that line is so cold and calculated. And it's almost like, screw you, Obi-Wan Kenobi, right? Like, how dare you? How, like, self-centered and egotistical for you to think that was done for you.
Right.
And you can see it on Kenobi's face, and Ewan does a great job of this, of like, whoa, what, another eye-opener within the span of, 20, 30 minutes or whatever, how much time passes there.
Right. Because, what Obi-Wan doesn't realize is that any connection to Owen with the Inquisitors leads directly to Luke. Mm-hmm. And we know what they do. They steal children. And to steal someone of Luke's caliber, Owen, for as much as he kind of thinks he wants to put his head in the sand or comes across that way maybe, he's not dumb. He's doing all these things to protect Luke in the best way that he knows how. And it's basically to not get involved, right? Like we hear Obi-Wan say in A New Hope. But it's very much to anything that has a small scent that leads them to, Owen sees it firsthand, right? Reva knows something's not right immediately that he knows. I mean, she's got some ability there too that's needing some exploration, but, he knows that they'll take the kid and they will probably roast him and the wife. Foreshadowing.
Well, yeah, there's a line in there. We'll get to that in a second with Reva. And yeah, I'm kind of convinced now after what we've seen. Again, we have the benefit of now seeing the third episode, so I don't know that I picked up on this in the first round, but definitely this one. And let's talk about this. Let's talk about Reva next. There's her cutting off the hand, which I thought was awesome and extreme.
Again, very Vader-esque, yeah.
Very Vader. It certainly sends a message, and it's very in character. I would as well for her. Let's see. There was a line in there where she says, "You got a Jedi on that farm too." And I'm thinking, that's funny because she actually does have a future Jedi, probably the most powerful Jedi in a long time on that farm, which is ironic. But the line that I'm talking about is as she walks away after they kind of tell her to stand down, the fifth brother kind of slams down that little holo device and says, "If anybody knows anything, we'll pay you." Very different approach.
Yeah, very
then
different.
We'll cut your arms off or kill your family. But she says, "Next time, Owen." And the way she trails off from that line and from that scene, I was like, whoa, wait a minute. She's coming back. Now, I haven't even had a chance to think about why she would come back or how this is going to come back. I have some thoughts around. Well, I do have some preliminary thoughts as to why, which we won't get into in this episode because let's just wait until we get to the next one. But
I don't
there
think
does
there's
feel
any.
like there's
I
foreshadowing
don't
there.
think it's gonna. I don't think it's gonna happen at all.
Really?
Because now she has the scent of Obi-Wan, so Obi-Wan would have to lead her back to Tatooine in some way for Owen to be back on the radar, I think. And now if they lose track of Obi-Wan, then Owen, Beru, and Luke could very much be back in the crosshair because, presumably she might think that they knew. Now, granted, the other thing is also Nari, right? So did he know about Nari and they caught Nari? So is that a threat anymore? And then with Obi-Wan, they didn't know Obi-Wan was on Tatooine, actually.
Right. No.
So,
they
yeah.
didn't.
And again, so I think they're done with Tatooine, at least from what they know. And so I couldn't find a reason why she would go back. I paid really close, when I saw the notes, I paid really close attention to that scene. And I think in the context of that scene, but knowing where we are now, it really just into part 2, I don't see a reason why she would go back there specifically for Obi-Wan, unless she were to survive the series and want to go hunting again. But again, that seems like she would have found them if any of that stuff was going to happen.
So the only reason I think they would is because writers usually don't put those lines in there unless they're going to follow through on them. Like she could have said a million other things, but the fact that she said next time, Owen, and the way she walked off, I've just seen too many movies, read too many books. I don't, and again, it's just an intuition. You're probably right, but I am going to spend some time here over the next couple of days and come up with a theory as to how they get back there.
See, I will see that and I'll challenge it that writers also give a ton of red herrings.
Yeah, not like this though.
Oh,
Not like
yeah.
this.
Come on.
No.
Yes, they do all the time.
They do. In general, yes, they give you red herrings, but it doesn't. It's out of character for her to say that in that moment.
I don't know that's out of character. She's very assertive and also very threatening. She does anything that comes across as threatening to get her point across and to, get people to react in some kind of way. And again, I think within the context, she thought she would have to probably come back and interrogate him. But I think, again, given the events that we happen, it seems unlikely at this point. But I am curious what kind of theory you might be able to come up with.
It's going to happen.
Oh, I have no doubt about that.
What else? Let's talk about the Alderaan party. There was a 3PO and R2-D2 Easter eggs that were there. They're both in the background.
Was R2 there?
Yep.
I didn't see R2.
Yeah, he's there.
Oh, okay.
So you got to catch it. He's not in the first scene when they show everybody, and you definitely see our C-3PO, and then there's the other droid YO. I think is that the other protocol droid she mentions? Okay,
it's not the one on the Tantive before though.
Yeah, and it's just slightly after. Oh yeah, that's not her too. But it's slightly after that. There's a scene for all of about 1 second. R2-D2 is sitting there, and I don't know what it's doing. He's just there, like he's not serving drinks or anything.
I was hoping he'd have a cocktail on his dome.
Exactly, foreshadowing again of his previous work as a bartender. But yeah, so those were in there. I did like the Purgo reference about Bale talking about how he wanted to run off and chase
Purgils. Yeah,
that would be awesome. I don't know what that's like, but it sounds exciting. And then of course the other line that stood out for me was I know who she's like.
Right.
That who did you take that as?
I think everything's steering back to Padme at this point.
Okay.
I mean, there's a case for Anakin, of course, but
yep.
I think they're leaning heavy into the Padme references.
I saw people say Bail Organa too, which I mean, I guess.
Oh, what Brea said.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that one might be more Bale because Bale seems like he's got a rebellious streak in him.
Yeah.
So yeah, of her, I think she's talking about him. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, you're fine. Yeah, and I had it down to either Padme or Bale. I'd still like to think it's more Padme because Kenobi makes that reference a little bit later about seeing somebody like her before.
Well, and again, Brea could be thinking about Bale, and Bale could be thinking about Padme. So it could be
true, right.
I mean, it could be all of the above. Yeah. Let's go with all of the above.
Circular reference there.
That's right.
And then it ends with Kenobi's call to action where Leia is suddenly kidnapped. I know there's been a lot of discussion about the chase scene and whatever. Again, it needs to happen. So, you want to call it poor editing or.
Well, sadly, it was still way more exciting than the speeder bike chase.
That's right. I will give it that. I mean, Take your pick. What do you want? Do you want the mopeds in Book of Boba Fett, or would you rather have this scene? I think
Right.
this
I mean,
scene is better.
at least with Leia, she's jumping. She knows the woods really well, right? That's the idea. She's sliding underneath branches, and I mean, the adults were a bit comical in this regard, and yeah, they could have just reached out and grabbed her.
Sure.
But I think the way they did it was it still worked well enough, even though it wasn't the most exciting scene. It was a little bit, I don't know, silly for lack of a better word, but I think it still worked well enough that said, okay, well, Leia's not a slouch. She knows how to get around and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it was okay.
All right. I had a line in here, and now I don't remember who the heck said it. It was, if Leia is discovered, and they end there. Do you remember who said that?
Yeah, Bale did.
Okay. Was that, the question I had was why, and I don't know if it was because if they would somehow be able to trace her back to Padme's daughter?
I think I think this is leaning in really hard on Padme and Anakin of, we know the lineage, and if anybody finds her or discovers who she really is, then absolutely it'll turn the Empire's attention to her. It won't just be a Luke Skywalker. And I think some of that is we're also leaning in really hard of Leia is just important as Luke at this age of protecting and making sure that they're safe and making sure that they're growing up in the right way. Right. And so I think a lot of that was really trying to really accentuate that importance. I think that was really on the nose. I think it was very clear that that's what they were trying to do. And I think for Bale, it was also really important for Obi-Wan to hear that. Look, it's not just your kid. Your kid's important, but so is this one.
Yeah.
And you know what? We're probably doing a better job, type of thing. Wait till you meet her. She's a firecracker.
She's a...
Yeah. Right. But they also see that she is very much like her mother. She's very, and like Anakin too, very strong-willed, but super intelligent and can be very influential when she wants to be, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, and she's definitely gifted in many ways, not just, and I love Bale's mention to her that, people lead in different ways, which I always think is a fantastic type of line, but also, she just has to find it. And the reason she doesn't want to be the Senate, and that's all the more reason that she should be.
Right.
But yeah, so I think that was kind of where Bale was going, that, she could be just as strong as Luke. Just because he's the boy doesn't mean that, he's automatically going to be the savior for everything.
Yeah.
Some people might call that a bit of a retcon of sorts. It's really not. It's really not.
No.
I think it's just accentuating that Leia is important too. I think we haven't really given Leia's childhood enough, attention. While Luke's hasn't been on screen, I think it's been explored a bit more.
Yeah. I don't think it's a retcon in any way. I think for me, it's more about, does it deconstruct the secrecy of them, right? I grew up thinking this was infallible. Like, this was the perfect hideaway. You kind of had to believe that for the story to kind of exist as it did in the original trilogy. And so when I start hearing things like that, it's like, well, it just seems so far-fetched that someone would be able to trace that back because they did such a good job, but it doesn't bother.
But I think they know that. I think they know that Leia's adopted. It wouldn't surprise me if the Senate, when you're a public figure, there's not much private, right? And so for them to know that she's adopted, it would surprise me if they haven't already dealt with that politically. But at the same time, if there was any kind of inkling that she was attached to Amidala or Skywalker, Skywalker's probably a further reach, but if they were to go back and like do the timeline and all of that, I don't think you have to work super hard at it if you're able to make a few connections where that would put Leia at really great risk. Of course, it's also like, well, why'd you put her be a public figure then? But
yeah, well, exactly. You went wrong when you did that. But you're starting to sound like a separatist.
Right, you are a separatist. So
yeah. Nari's death, is that? Can you put that on Obi-Wan, because he makes that comment of go back to town, and then the next thing you know, he's hung up in town.
Yeah, I kept looking for what killed him, and I didn't see a lightsaber burn or anything like that. Did you find a wound?
No, he died of hunger. I don't know. I have no idea.
Died
he's got
of boredom.
The ropes he's got the ropes underneath his arms, so it wasn't like he was hung. I think he was just put up there to be displayed.
Right.
But again, because of that line, he says the war is over, go back to town. And I think Nari's like, oh, Kenobi says I need to go back to town. Let me go back to town. And that was maybe enough for the Inquisitors to find him. We don't know what the story is there, but
It was interesting. The Inquisitors left, so someone must have ratted him out.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was a bit of that one happened pretty quick. But I think, it just spoke more to where Obi-Wan's at. I mean, you're hearing the words come out of his mouth, and Nari, again, we talked about this, looks up to him. And to hear this, he's like, who are you?
Yeah.
Where did this other guy go that, was the shining light of the Jedi?
Yep.
So it was a great way of putting kind of Obi-Wan's where he's at right now in perspective, especially through the eyes of a younger character, of what that means, and just feeling completely abandoned by your the people you look up to.
Yeah. Very different from where Reva's at probably as well.
Oh yeah, I mean, she definitely went the other route.
Wouldn't it be interesting if that boy was one of the boys too? Nah, I don't think they would have.
No, I think that would have. Yeah, I think they would have
something.
already seen that and known that, because they would have recognized each other, right?
Maybe. But yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was a missed opportunity though.
Well, again, I think he's older than the kids that we saw on the screen there, but yeah.
Yeah, probably. Of course, Bail Organa ends up showing up. He's the only other robe character, by the way. I was telling you, like, whenever I made that comment that he's got the worst disguise because he's wearing a robe, I went and looked. There aren't very many people wearing robes.
Right, robe, yes, but he's wearing like khaki pants and a blue shirt, a non-Jedi belt.
No, he's not wearing a blue shirt. When he takes off
or a blue shawl, he's got like a red shirt or something, right?
No, he looks like a Jedi when he heads to Dayu. That's what I'm saying. Like,
he's still got the other. It's just the shawl that he's wearing, or
he looks like a Jedi.
Thing.
I'm sorry, he looks like a Jedi. Like, if all the color, like I would have changed my color palette or kept the blue shirt and not put the white one on that he's got when he's walking off and that lady stops him before he jumps onto the transport.
But see, but he doesn't look like this.
He's close.
Oh, come on. He doesn't have the boots. He doesn't have the tabard. For those that are listening, I apologize. I'm showing my sideshow mythic version of Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Oh, you just had to rub it in there. We don't have the funds like you do there, Jonesy. Okay, we can't afford that.
I could pull the First Order one down here too, if you'd like.
I don't know. I think it's a terrible disguise. Well, and the fact that he keeps putting his hood on, I'm like, okay, I get your face is recognizable. Maybe the Jedi thing. I don't. It's a small nitpick for me.
I think he looks like it, but I think if you take the robe away, I think he looks like an everyday worker, though.
An everyman?
Yeah. Can we agree on that part at least?
No.
Oh, okay, fine.
I'm not conceding this one.
Whose Jedi belt was that Tika found? Was that Nari's?
I think that was Nari's.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah. Because I think that's when Obi-Wan was like, whoa, there's you can see it on his face. He's thinking like there's a Jedi here. And it felt like he was, I'm glad you brought that up. Because I remember, at least in the second or third viewing, it almost looked like he was going to take it. Like he felt inclined to like take that. And then he was like, no, I can't. And gives it back and reluctantly gives it away. Like, I can't, this can't lead to me in some way, you know?
Right. But they had talked about, there was a Jedi ship that they had, finally been able to get to and raid, basically.
Yeah. Right. And that's you're right. That's the other side of the coin. Were they talking about Kenobi's ship and whatever he came in on?
But again, I think it's been 10 years and I don't think Kenobi rode a Jedi ship at all.
Yeah.
So yeah. So it must have been Nari. I think all signs point to a careless kid. Right.
Who abandoned his belt. This belt is your life. There's, So where I was going was Bail comes back and he makes a comment about, you couldn't save Anakin, but you can save her. I think that was enough to kind of give him the kick in the butt to say, okay, fine, I'll do it. He goes then and picks out the buried lightsabers. I like the callback to, or the call forward, if you will, to the Rise of Skywalker. This is what Jedi do on Tatooine. They bury their lightsabers.
He told Nari to go do the same thing. Go in the middle of the desert, bury that lightsaber. Mm-hmm. You don't want anything that leads you back to being a Jedi.
Yeah. But I like the fact, I like thinking that Kenobi, even though a lot of people said, well, how would he have found it? And, well, you're a Jedi. You've got a connection with your lightsaber. That crystal is special. Yes. He probably used that to find it. I can rationalize all that all day, every day. The only thing is, it's just the amount of sand. And again, it's a convenience thing, right? They can't show 6 hours of him undoing 10 years of sand, not exciting television. So they just say, oh, look, he's on. This is what's important. He found.
But I like that he dug it up rather than using the Force to just pull it out of the sand, though, too, right?
Yeah.
I think it just speaks more to
I can't do that.
Trying to avoid using the Force at this point, or he's just so used to not using it, he just doesn't anymore.
Right. That's just not that's not his first First, what do you call it? Decision, action.
Right.
Okay, and then we know that the final part is that we learn that Reva's kind of behind the kidnapping, and she's doing this because she knows of a connection that exists between Kenobi and the Organas.
And this is where I wanted your opinion. So, if she knows there's a connection,
here we go.
If she knows there's a, are you talking about me or Lauren?
No,
Okay.
not Lauren. No. This
Okay.
I've had this fight. I can't even tell you, man. Like I've had. Well, maybe it's not, but I've had a fight.
I'm not having a fight. I just want your thoughts on it.
I know. No, I'm not saying you.
Yeah, I'm sure it's exactly what you're thinking. So Reva, she's able to make this connection between Obi-Wan and Bail before. So it seems like Bail's pretty much a known traitor, effectively. And now I know that this isn't new, right? I think this has been established in some of the other books and whatnot. But why do they keep tolerating Bail if they know that he's tied to Kenobi or some of these others, and that he's, or are they just banking that he's just around and they don't necessarily have any direct, maybe they just suspect Bail Organa more so than there's actually an actual connection between Organa's actively hiding Obi-Wan Kenobi. But clearly Organa would have to reach out and tell Obi-Wan. So it seems like he would be harboring and abating, a known criminal effectively.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So why don't they go after Bail?
So
or is that a political thing?
I think it is. I think it is. So, and this is exactly the thing. I can't tell you how many debates I've had on this.
Well, hopefully I'm coming across as more reasonable with my approach.
Well, no, you are absolutely, and this is not feedback to you. It's just I can't.
Don't worry, kids. We'll fight after the show.
No, we never do that. Okay. So no, we really don't. But here's where I stand, and then I'll tell you what the writer said in the Hollywood Reporter. So again, that same article, you guys need to read that. There's some really good insight in there too. If you had not seen the third episode, there were some spoilers, so I think some people stayed away from it or just didn't see it because it was released on the weekend. But and it was it Joby? Was his last name? The writer? I forget. Yeah. Okay, it's not important. Okay. So my thought about this was going in, and I think they are similar to what the official word or stance is. So Bail Organa, yes, he's got ties to what is soon to be the rebellion, but we got to put this in context of where the Empire is. And I think personally, and this was a little bit, again, a little reaffirmed from the writer, right or wrong, whether you like it or not, Palpatine is trying to play nice. He knows that he's got the power of the Galactic Empire. However, he can't go. I guess he could go in and just kill everybody, which is what I keep hearing. Why didn't they just assassinate these people? Why didn't they just do all this? He doesn't do that until A New Hope. He doesn't abolish the Senate until A New Hope. And he does that for the very specific reason is he now has a power in which to wield to get everybody in line, which is the Death Star. But prior to that, right or wrong, for reasons we don't fully understand yet, he is trying to play nice, and he's trying to ensure that he can take advantage of the Senate, use them to manipulate the Senate, put people where he needs them to be, and do this without blowing up planets or destroying planets in a way that he can't get the resources or benefit from whatever they provide in terms of income and taxable stuff and all that, right? So there's a strategy there, I think, for Palpatine. And to go and assassinate a political figure would be, it's kind of a big thing. And later on,
I meant more like arrest rather than assassinate. You just brand them a traitor and arrest them. I don't think assassination is necessary.
Yeah,
but I think some of it might be Palpatine doesn't really give them enough credit of being able to really orchestrate anything or organize anything that would pose any kind of significant threat.
Yeah.
But anyway, I didn't mean to interrupt your thought.
No,
there.
I mean, we'll see. I mean, maybe there is something that comes out in the next couple episodes where there's an attempt or they make mention of that. I just don't know that he's in a position right now to go around and do all that. Again, does it feel like it's out of character? Maybe just a little bit. Yeah, I think so. I think that's fair to say that he wouldn't that the Palpatine we know wouldn't do this, but he's got all the power now, and maybe he is just trying to play nice. So what the writer said was similar to that in that this is a different time for the Empire. They do have the control of, I guess, the galaxy, if you will, but they're not as even 10 years from now, they're not as big as they want to be. They can't orchestrate and manipulate every single planet. It's a huge galaxy. And so the Organas and Alderaan have a lot to provide. And it's I think what he also went on to say was that over time, they get so fed up
Yeah.
with the fact that they can't really truly pin anything on him, that Tarkin's last like FU is to go up and use that planet as a the first real successful test of the Death Star, because
Right.
there's so much crap that's come out of Alderaan, and they
Right.
know there's something
20
going
years
on
of
there.
pent up anger and frustration with him. Yeah.
Yep.
No, I like that. That's kind of where I was going to. It was the same way.
But yeah, there is more on that one, and I get it. Like I said, I get the argument. I think it does make sense. But again, nothing, not a hill I would die on. But this, you wouldn't believe how often this is debated now. It still continues to be debated.
No, I mean, I like where it goes. Like when you get to the Tarkin aspect of it, I think that makes it all the more powerful. And there's just multiple layers of why Alderaan was picked. It wasn't just Leia; it was just the Organa family. And Alderaan in particular, right? Of like, we're going to make an example, and this example will resonate in multiple layers across the galaxy.
Yeah, you look at Leia, Princess of Alderaan by Claudia Gray.
Yeah.
There's things that Leia does even then that are just like, whoa, she's a senator. She's out doing this stuff. She's and there's risk. I don't think she was ever caught, but there are all kinds of signs that are pointing back to something's going on. It's originating from Alderaan, and she could or couldn't be at the bottom of it. But again, it's because they have so much power, they have so much influence as a senator, and being in that position of power, that Palpatine doesn't try to arrest them or try to execute them in any way until he finally just says enough is enough, and I'm going to blow up Alderaan, put an end to that piece of crap that's been a thorn in my side for 20 years.
They were probably like, we can't get the Padilla family to tear down that shed from the old Republic.
Yeah,
we're going to do it for them now.
Yep. And by the way, I'm going to abolish the Senate because I don't really need you anymore. Sorry.
Yeah.
Thing of the past. You're dinosaurs at this point. Okay, well, let's move on to part 2. Now that we're an hour and 11 minutes in.
Yeah, when you said hour and a half, I was like, whatever.
Yeah, I think we can get through this because while there was a lot that happened here, I think it was just there were moments I think we need to speak about, but I think given that we've already spoken about it in part 3, I think
there's a lot of chase scene stuff. Yeah,
exactly. We start with Dayu again. I love the aesthetic. I know people have made the comparisons to like Blade Runner, and for me, it's more Nar Shaddaa than Blade Runner, because Nar Shaddaa is a Star Wars planet. It looks very similar. What did you think about Tamora Morrison doing that little cameo with the clone trooper out on his luck, and a veteran? I mean, it kind of hits home, unfortunately, here in the U.S. at least, with some of the veterans that we see out there. But I was not expecting that. I like Kenobi's response. I like the way he was just staring at him like, whoa, talk about a ghost from the past,
Right, or hopefully he doesn't recognize me. And it was interesting
yeah.
Remember in part 1, there was a bald-headed figure there at the bar on Tatooine, and there was a lot of speculation that was going to be a cameo from Tamora Morrison, when really we get it in part 2, and he's just out on his luck, cast aside, veteran in the Clone Wars. And I thought it was pretty cool, though. I like that they at least mention it to see what has happened with the clones, and to at least give you some semblance that, there are still some out there, but they've really been cast aside, and there's probably not very many left anyway, compared to where they were at the very least,
Yeah.
But I like that there was a bit of a callback there, and I thought I liked seeing the, oh, you know what moment on Obi-Wan's face of saying, oh boy, does he recognize me? Do I recognize him? I mean, the Grand Army of the Republic was big, but again, it's been 10 years, so a lot of things fade, and we don't quite know how well the clones age in every regard.
And if he had worn a different costume, that probably would have been less.
The colors were unique, right? I mean, that was, the colors were unique. So again, are they going to explore that and come back to it? My guess is no. I think that was truly just a cameo. But I liked it. I liked that they threw that in there. I think that was really neat.
By the way, in the part 3 episode, I brought up that people were speculating that Ned, the robot, was a somebody, the person. Now I've seen it. Wrecker is what people are saying. No, I don't understand.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, we're Star Wars fans. We like to connect everything.
Yeah, it's not right.
So
I could be wrong.
It's possible.
Could be possible, but it's not.
Wrecker couldn't keep his mouth shut for that long. Let's just be straight. Yeah.
Yeah. What about, okay, we'll get a chance now to talk about Jaco and Haja, the con artist.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people, I saw some people that were like, hey, it doesn't seem like he's a Star Wars character? I think he does. I don't think he's a good Jedi, but and to be fair, like I don't know that he seems like he plays the same character in a lot of different ways. I like that character seemed very similar to the one he played in Eternals.
Eternals, yeah.
Yeah, like almost identical in
Yeah.
a lot of ways. The way he delivers his lines, the way he spoke. And that's not criticism. It's just some actors are like that. You see the same character in every performance they do, and they do a good
Well,
job.
yeah, and he's definitely not like that in every movie he's been in.
Yeah,
The Big Sick was definitely one of those.
Yep.
But yeah, I it was a character. I kind of like this idea though. I mean, you have people using certain things to take advantage, but at the same time, he's doing something good, but he's profiteering off of it at the same time. So it's morally wrong. And I like his lines later on, you know, when he's trying to help Obi-Wan, and
I like credits.
I like credits. Yeah. You know,
I mean, you can do with them.
right. Exactly. Yeah. You know, have I done some shady things? Sure.
Sure.
You know, have I felt bad about him? Sometimes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but again, it was just, people are trying to make a living, especially on a planet like Daiyu, where it's just full of, pardon the pun, but scum and villainy. I mean, it's literally a cesspool of drugs and, bounty hunters and people like that. We see when the wanted poster goes out for Obi-Wan, it's like everybody's wrist lights up, right?
Yeah.
So clearly it's not a haven for, for well-doers for the most part. So they're trying to scrap it, and that they're doing anything positive or good, even profiting off of it, I think is saying something. And I like that we at least got that part of the character come out. And again, I kind of like the swindling things. And again, I like he went through a lot of elaborate, things to make it look like he was a Jedi. And was it over the top? But most people have never seen a Jedi. But it was really cool though that the kid was Force sensitive. Right. And that's the part I didn't really quite pick up on the very first time I watched it. Mm-hmm. But in subsequent viewings, though, it's definitely come across, that they are trying to protect, these Force sensitive kids to where they can at least get to a safe place and not be exploited by the Empire.
Yeah. Yeah. His heart's in the right place, which is,
right.
His motives are probably a little weird.
There's no reason you shouldn't make a couple bucks off of it. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's dangerous work.
He said, what did he say? I sent them off. They're safer, but poorer or something.
Right. Just a little poor. Yeah.
A little poor. That's all fair. Man's got to eat. Okay, I want to talk about Ben and Leia, and we can kind of just cover a number of instances or interactions that they have in this episode. But I do really love the dynamic between the two. I think Ewan is at his best when he's at his best, honestly, whenever he's with Leia or when he's thinking about Anakin, right?
Yeah.
Or just the expressions on his face. He seems so caught off guard by this, which is what I love the most, because I think we talked about this in part 3. The Kenobi that was the witty, snappy comeback kid, if you will, always had a retort, always had a comment. He's now like being put in his place by this 10-year-old girl who is just is dishing it out. It's almost like it's all coming back to him, and he's not on his A game for all the reasons that we've already talked about. But just he's got these great looks of like surprise and shock that if you have children or a 10-year-old, you go through this. Like they say certain things and do certain things that completely catch you off guard, and you question like, how old are you, right? And that's exactly what he did. I mean, that line is uttered by many parents every single day. How old are you? Because they just do that kind of stuff. But what are your thoughts? I guess and if you've got some moments or anything that you felt like were particularly of interest or funny or cute.
I just like the dynamic between them. I think it works. It's good to see Obi-Wan completely thrown off balance. And again, this is kind of a throwback to what we would imagine life would have been like with Anakin really early on too, right? Mm-hmm. Of this defiant kid and struggling to that. And you see how he jumps all over her most of the time and doesn't give her a say. And you can tell that he's just not in it. He just wants to be done with it, get the mission done, get over, get back home, right?
Yeah.
And back to Tatooine, we'll just call home at this point. But, but I like that, she's, even though she's the 10-year-old, she's effectively given the orders, and she's the one thinking critically. And yeah, she's got a very naive, set of thoughts around her sometimes, like, oh, well, if someone's willing to help us, we should just trust them, right? Same thing we see with Freck later on. We just kind of do whatever needs to be done, and we'll just take the chance and roll the dice. Very much like her dad in that kind of way. But I like the dynamic, though. I like that it's a challenge for Obi-Wan, and he's not equipped for really a youngling like this. He's so out of practice with it.
Yep.
And there's no discipline. And while she has discipline, clearly she's rebellious in every kind of way.
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of moments in there where that rebellious streak comes out. There are some of the lines, she calls him old and beat up when she's questioning whether or not he's a Jedi. You can see on his face, like, hey, like, how dare you say that? Then later on, there's the moment where he's like, I'll take that hoodie. And then she's got the gloves on. He's like, he doesn't really even do anything. He just looks at her and he can tell, okay, wait, I guess I'm getting the gloves. And he says, and
He
the
says no,
gloves.
he says no gloves. Yeah.
Yeah, and then he says, and the gloves, right?
And the gloves. Yeah. It was cute.
Yeah, that's a dad and daughter thing right there.
Oh yeah.
Getting suckered into buying more than you thought you were going to buy. There's the line where she says granddaughter, maybe. I know that was a good one too. Because that is, again, 10-year-olds being brutally honest with you, or whether you asked for it or not.
Right.
The way she was kidding around with, like, make me float, like, that's like a cool thing. I want to do that, right? And not realizing that would expose him. And of course, this is all kind of foreshadowed and plays out a little bit later when he has to make her float. But more than anything, just her ability to kind of see right through Kenobi and really see through the heart of what he's doing. And yeah, she feels betrayed there at the very end after she realizes that, of course, everybody is there for her or for him, and that he was being used as kind of the he was there. He was being.
She
used
was the
as
bait.
She was the bait to get Kenobi, and that kind of struck her the wrong way. She certainly felt like she couldn't trust him anymore. But just her ability again to peer right through him in all these instances about. I don't even remember what she was. I can't remember what she was talking about to him, but where she was laying into him about what he was doing, and it was very similar to what she had said to her cousin earlier on.
Right.
So, and all these things really kind of speak again to the power of Leia and that innate Force ability. She's got, the ability to be very, very persuasive in a lot of ways, and it's only enhanced by her ability in the Force.
Yeah, she's very much. What's interesting, she's very much like her adopted mother in some ways, though, because Brea is very direct too, and it's kind of interesting watching her behave and trying to equate her to Bail and Brea of who is she more like, and we haven't seen her hone the skills that Bail has as far as negotiating and coming to a compromise type of situation, and Brea, while is very good, we've seen a lot of examples in some of the books and stuff where she's very direct and very pointed, and she's very much a bit of a taskmaster in some kind of ways as well, especially to Leia. I think in general, we got a flavor of that here. But yeah, so it's definitely kind of Brea comes out in her as well from the adopted side, not just a Padme reference every time that she's behaving a certain way.
Yeah, she's got the benefit of growing up. I mean, she's got those inherent abilities or the DNA of Anakin and Padme, but then she's got all of the traits and everything else coming from Bail and Brea as well. So this is why she's such a well-rounded character.
But I'm with you, though. I like it when she lays into Obi-Wan and really calls him out, because again, this is how Obi-Wan's going to get out of this funk, and get out of his own head with some of this stuff. And sometimes it's truly, it's like the Yoda line from Attack of the Clones, right? Mm-hmm. Truly, what is it? Truly wonderful, or something in the mind of a child. And so it's just one of these things that, and you pointed it out too with kids somehow seem to make you have to get over yourself in some kind of ways when it comes to kids, because you're not going to corral them 100%. You're not going to control them. They're going to control you a lot of the times, and you just got to start to roll with it. And okay, well, how do I shape this little monster sometimes in the right direction, even if I can't really control, what they're doing every moment of every day. Yep.
There is so early when we were talking about why haven't they just done something with Bail Organa? I think it was, I don't know if it was the fifth brother or Grand Inquisitor, but one of them said you would kidnap an Imperial senator's child, right? Kind of hitting home this idea that's off limits right now. Even with everything that's going on, Order 66 and Palpatine being in power, that's off limits right now. You just can't go around doing that for whatever reason, right or wrong.
Well, I think some of that is, and we get a little bit of an inkling for that in the comic books when the Inquisitors kind of wreak havoc with Vader across Coruscant and end up killing a senator, is that Palpatine has a use for everybody that's still around, right? And I think these powerful ones in particular, Palpatine has a very close eye on, and I think you want to be very careful. And I think the Inquisitors are on notice of saying, do not jack with the political arena. Do not do it. Unless basically Vader tells you to do it, or if the Emperor himself told you, which he doesn't get involved anymore. But I think it's very much that. I think it's that the political arena is Palpatine's, and you are not to interfere with that at all. And I think he's made that clear, and that's why they're on Nur in the first place. Is to stay out of the way,
right?
And
keeping
not
them
interfere
off,
with
keeping
things.
away from Coruscant.
Yeah.
And if I remember correctly, the comic you're speaking of, didn't he retaliate against them for doing that? Or didn't he have somebody retaliate, Vader or somebody else, for stepping out of line there?
Well, Palpatine always takes it out on Vader, but I don't remember any.
Maybe not directly. Yeah, it was.
Yeah, I don't remember any like drastic measures, but yeah, he kicked him off. That's for sure.
Yeah. What about the line where the Grand Inquisitor calls Reva the least of us?
Yeah, that was a interesting one, right?
That whole dynamic of her being like lower than them, and they mentioned
coming out of the gutter,
finding her in the gutters, and that they can smell her stink, and
which kind of leads you to think that they didn't take her from the temple; they found her in some other way and took her in. Which again, it's just another example of the backstory for Reva has to come out, where we're getting so much of this that there's got to be something to finally show us and tell us exactly what happened from the time we, presumably saw her in the temple at the very beginning of part 1.
Yep.
With all of these little breadcrumbs that they're dropping, and why is it that she is so? Maybe she's one of the newer Inquisitors. She's definitely one of the younger ones, I think. But why is it that seems to be the black sheep too? But again, I think fifth brother, or maybe it was the Grand Inquisitor, said that if it wasn't for her ability, that's basically got her station.
Yep. That's
what's got her to where she is that she has ability. And so I don't know if that's because she's had training or if she's just, again, she does seem to have abilities that are not typical. We haven't seen them in a lot of Jedi. We've seen them more in the sequel trilogy with like Kylo Ren being able to read minds and some of that. But, maybe she's got something unique to her that is very appealing to Vader and the Empire.
Yeah. Well, I think it's that her ability to probe minds and extract information.
Yeah,
that's probably key, right? If you're especially in that role, that's probably a big deal. So it feels like they're only keeping her around for that because she is kind of a loose cannon. Doesn't seem like she gets along with anybody, And on top of all that, she's making some horrible decisions based in their eyes, at least. She must have one heck of an ability. Otherwise, yeah, I would have killed her off a long time ago.
Well, that's the thing. The Inquisitors are not shy and bashful about taking a swipe at their own. And we definitely, you're getting that feeling through these episodes. I think that's coming through quite nicely, but they actually get more brutal with it usually.
So I'll go to chat real quick because Gary had an interesting thought. She seems like she's an Inquisitor by necessity, and she was always angry because of it.
Yeah, there's something below that surface, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I think there's some truth in that. Like if she did grow up in the Jedi Temple, and in her heart she feels like the Jedi didn't do what they needed to do, she probably has that. She carries that conflict of like, how can you look at yourself in the mirror, right? And she's now living what she was being brought up to not ever be, but she feels like maybe she doesn't have a choice in some way, and so the only natural line for her was to join the Inquisitors and, I don't know, try to find peace or
well, again, sometimes it's about
in some way.
Yeah, sometimes it's about freedom too, right? And the way that some people, when they're imprisoned or they're really oppressed, the only way they feel like they can have that power is to escalate to the top of that ladder.
Yep.
And then they have it, even though in the process they've become the very thing that they've wanted to rebel against or maybe fought against initially. And then they're just as bad. I mean, this is very much the Anakin story all over again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but yeah, it's unclear though if that's exactly what it is, if it's really that straightforward, or if there's more to it. It seems like there's going to be a little bit more to it than all of that, but it's very curious what her motives are. Because again, she's, I will get what I'm owed.
Yeah.
Right. And comments like that, it's just, okay, what is lurking beneath the surface with this, with this Inquisitor?
This all leads to the rooftop battle, which I guess we don't need to go through every detail of this at all. I mean, I thought it was fine. I enjoyed it. It was kind of nice to see the footage that we had speculated so much on from the trailers kind of finally kind of put together and all that. But we got, the
droid was nobody.
Yeah, the droid was nobody. It was not Forlom. There was, the parkour stuff going on, which I thought was cool. Getting to see her use her force abilities in a couple of different ways. Her being Reva. There's the dinosaurs. Like I said, dinosaurs are in Star Wars. They've always been in Star Wars. It was kind of cool to see the raptor. I've never seen that one before.
Right. Well, it's been a joke online too, with like Kevin Scott and them. Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure. Ever since High Republic, ever since that whiteboard that said dinosaurs, and everybody was like, "Oh, there's dinosaurs in Star Wars." Yeah.
Or is it more DJO? I can't remember. One of them. Now it's just a joke between all of them. But
yeah, now it is a huge joke to them. But yeah, this is right in your face. I mean, he looked like it was blue right out of Jurassic Park.
It did. Yeah.
Jurassic World. But yeah, and then we kind of predicted that he would refuse to use his lightsaber as much as possible because of, he didn't want to expose himself and maybe just the lack of confidence with it as well. But definitely the case. He was it's just weird to see Kenobi using the blaster as much as he's done so far in these first 3 episodes, which makes sense. It totally makes sense. It's just weird to see that. He's pretty good with it. Not bad for
the rooftop the rooftop battle, he missed a bunch of shots, but
he's it's a pretty far.
He made up for it in part 3 though.
Oh yeah. He was like bullseye.
He was lights out. Yeah.
Dead
he was
eye.
a marksman there.
Yep. And then of course he uses the force there at the very end to make her float.
And again, we talked about this last week. I mean, he's putting a lot of effort into it. And so again, to kind of revisit it now that it's a bit fresher on our minds, is it painful for him to do this for the first time? Or is it that it's taking a lot of effort to get it all to work again, as we've lost Howard's video?
Yeah, can you still hear me though?
Yeah, I can still hear you. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm just now a disembodied voice if you're watching the live stream. That's awesome.
He's become one with the Force.
I have.
He's communing with Qui-Gon.
I'll get it back in a second. But Matthew Arbros is so uncivilized. Yeah, he's just got to be like hurting having to use the lights or the blasters as much as he is.
Right. You can tell he doesn't want to use the lightsaber though either. He's almost afraid of just holding it. He's just got this look on his face like, I can't use this thing anymore. I don't have the confidence to use it.
Right. There's but to answer your question, I do feel like he is, like, I feel like he's genuinely struggling. Like that he was exerting a lot of effort for something that probably was now, okay, well, I say that. I'm gonna say this, but then I'm gonna call back to the High Republic. That's because they brought this up in the High Republic a few times. But he does feel like he's exerting a lot of effort to make her float, and from that, I would say, yeah, he's struggling, likely because he's lost his touch with the Force. I think it's still there. I mean, obviously, it's still there, but it's like a fire, right? That fire is not a flame anymore. It's an ember at best. It's just enough to kind of keep things going, but being able to tap into the Force in that way in that moment. Took a lot of exertion. It was heavy. He exerted a lot of energy to do it, and I think where I was going to say with the High Republic, being able to lift people and teleport, or levitate people, is a very difficult ability in itself. Right? There's instances, and we won't get into them now. There's instances in the High Republic where they've kind of talked about this, and we've seen them use it a lot. We've seen them with Loading Greatstorm. Used it. You go back to the Kylo Ren comic, where what was it?
With Snoke.
Snoke, yeah, and throwing him off the side of the cliff and then catching him. So it is something that is possible, but never once in those, with the exception of maybe a couple of the characters in the High Republic, did they show that was a truly difficult thing. The Masters were certainly capable of doing it. How about that? And if somebody like Kenobi, you would expect to be able to do that all day, every day, and it was not easy.
To catch someone falling off of a building where there's no chance of survival and it's a kid, that's a lot of pressure to put on you for the first time opening back up to the Force.
Yeah, you can see it on his face. He's absolutely scared. He's terrified when she goes over. Like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do anything about it, right? So
his answer was to hold on tight.
Hold on tight. That's all you got to do.
Yeah.
Okay, where were we? Oh, so then let's go to Haja, and again, this is that moment where he gets her off world, and they kind of give us the whole line about there's a shuttle up there, they don't know about it, it's all automated, whatever he says. But there was a line where he says, "If I'd known what you were," is what he says to Obi-Wan. He's got this look in his eye, like he's excited, and the only thing I can think is it is for Haja, as much as he is a con artist, it does feel like he and probably others are like, wow, it's a Jedi. Like that's actually hope. right? He almost has this look of hope in his eyes of like this could be the start of things to change. And of course, it wouldn't be for another few years. But he's very optimistic. But I do take him at face value. I think if had he known that he was truly a Jedi, things may have been different. And it feels like that was a turning point for that character at that, right? Like I don't know if he probably won't stay away from being a con artist and taking people's money until he finds better work.
Right.
But it does feel like this could be the catalyst for him to become something different or become something more. And
if anything, it's actually a pretty good cover, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
a con artist that's able to smuggle off force sensitive people.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's kind of a good cover.
Now that Reva's been in his mind, though, it feels like he is a huge target, though.
Oh
like,
yeah, imagine him and maybe the kid are got to go.
Yeah, I don't know if he comes back or not in the series. I think that's a good question. Maybe they pick this story up later on in something else. But maybe they could bring him up in Andor or something. I don't know. But but I think he's got a target on his head now. Like I'm surprised that she just let him go. To be quite honest, that she seemed like her eye was on the prize, and
right.
But depending on what she saw, and especially with the way he was talking to her and all that, like
yeah.
I mean. I was like, oh, dude, you're going to die. Like, Reva's going to kill you. There's no way you're going to survive this. But, yeah, he just kind of...
Yeah, because she saw right through it all, too.
Oh, yeah.
You're no Jedi.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. And then, I guess the final scene here is in the hangar.
Obi-Wan.
Yeah, that was
scary, man. That reminded me of the... what is it?
Come out and play?
No, the Haunted Mansion ride.
I don't know.
Where, yeah, there's this... anyway, it's a Disney ride. At the very end, though, there's this this ghost that basically haunts you and then tells you to come back soon and stuff. But it's very much in that kind of singing, haunting kind of voice. That's very horror reminiscent, like you're stalking your prey.
Yeah,
and you're singing to him at the same time. It was actually quite good. I liked it a lot.
That sounds scary. The parallels between this scene, coupled with the scene in part 3 where Vader's stalking him in the dark, are very similar to that whole Jedi scene with Vader and Luke when he's hiding.
Yeah.
In the part 3, it was maybe more the visuals of the fight and the way he just kind of pops up. Well, that was more Empire, I guess, more than anything. But that all seemed very similar. But here, the lines of "I can feel you," "Your fear betrays you," right? And Vader saying, "Your thoughts betray her," and she says, "I'm going to take you to him. Lord Vader will be pleased." All of that was just so dramatic and beautiful because the minute she says, "Lord Vader will be pleased," you can see
it instantly.
And he does such a good job of conveying the shock and horror and the fear of what all that really means and the reality of it all. And you can't help but think he's thinking back to that moment, those final moments where Anakin's sitting there just burning to death. And we've talked about this in the one of the episodes where he just walked off and whether or not he should have just mercy killed him or allow him to just burn there. All of that has to just become like surfaced immediately. And this is enough to really get him to the point where he's about to bottom out, which we kind of eventually see here in part 3 as well. But your thoughts? I think
what we also see though, is that while he recognizes the name Vader because he saw the holo vid, he really has not heard Vader's name or his exploits around the galaxy for the last 10 years. He really has been that disconnected to where it is that big of a shock. And I think that's the part that was really interesting to learn is that, he really has had his head stuck in this proverbial sand and maybe literally, and so where he has no idea what's really going on in the greater galaxy.
Yep.
Otherwise, he would have known that Vader was out there, and it was. But again, way more powerful this way. But no, Ewan McGregor did a fantastic job. You just seeing it immediately, and he's like, "What?" I mean, the way that his eyes get, kind of glossy, even when he gets on the transport and he says Anakin's name, But again, it kind of keeps going back to how does Reva know who Anakin Skywalker is, or who Vader is? That he was once Anakin Skywalker, and that's another interesting one. I imagine that there's some level where they just find some of this stuff out, but that was a really big secret. And it has been for as long as we've been Star Wars fans. There was a clear distinction between Anakin Skywalker, the hero, and Darth Vader, and there was no crossover between them for the most part. So it's interesting that there are a few people who know who they are, because Jocasta also knew as soon as she confronted Vader who he truly was.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not as much of a secret as we always maybe thought it was out to be, but it still doesn't seem like many people know that connection. But again, how does she know it? Just another layer of mystery for Reva.
Well, I got a question for you on that. How would you feel if we got a flashback of Order 66 in the next episode, for example, and in that episode we see a young Reva as that Padawan, and she's hiding in the temple or whatever, and she's like a firsthand witness to maybe not the knighting or the introduction of Lord Vader, right? That whole ceremony thing, because that was in Palpatine's little quarters, but someone refers to him as Vader at that point. Like, she's seeing this and she realizes, she puts two and together, and she's like, whoa, that's Anakin Skywalker. And they're calling him Vader. And I'm watching him slaughter other Jedi or other Padawan, my friends, that kind of thing. Would that be enough for you to be like, oh, okay, well, that's how she would know? Because that would be the easiest way, and incorporate more flashbacks and kind of solidify that, yeah, okay, she was that character as well. Maybe they combine those two scenes together, or do you think there needs to be something more than that?
Well, I think that's a great question of, was Vader's task when he went to the temple or at the end of Revenge of the Sith, was it just to kill the younglings, or did he do other stuff while he was there? With all the action we've seen in the temple, it seems like he would have to have cut down other people too.
Yeah,
now,
sure.
I think the younglings were a very specific task for Palpatine, though, right? Because it was very much, how committed are you to this cause, to where you would do something so
stop the future
heinous. Yeah, I mean, yeah. So I it would make sense if they actually went back. I mean, and Hayden's still young enough looking, and they can do wonders with makeup and with digital effects to make him look like he did back then. And I think it would be very plausible that, I think it would be one way to work, and I think it would be okay if they did that Reva would see something. But again, Anakin presumably would have, or Vader, I guess, presumably would have been able to feel her, though, because younglings aren't that good at hiding themselves.
Yeah, maybe.
And so if she would have seen something, would she have done that? Again, he had another task to go off to on Mustafar, but yeah, that's an interesting one. I think we probably could get additional clarity there with all that. But again, some of it still kind of goes back to what's her story? How'd she get out of the temple? And it seems like she would be more interested in escaping, less so than coming across Anakin. But that would make a lot of sense, though. She saw him killing Jedi, and then all of a sudden you get this Vader character show up, and they don't want to show you his face.
Matthew says Ewan has done nothing but act his tail off in the series. I think we both agreed, and we talked about that a lot in part 3. If you've not listened to that one, I think he does a better job in part 3. He's done amazing throughout all of these episodes, but in part 3 he really shines. Gary is on the same page. I think she watched Anakin cut down Jedi in the temple, especially if she is the little girl with the younglings in episode 1. Yeah, he goes on to say maybe Palps said, "Bring me the younglings," and Anakin just justified killing them as if he was sparing the life on the dark side. So, there
are things far worse than death, right?
Yeah, there are, as the Grand Inquisitor once said. Okay, let's try to wrap this up here, because there is when the Grand Inquisitor shows up. Okay, we all know she kills him, right?
Yeah.
And there's been a lot of discussion about, okay, how does this? I saw, man, there's some people going just nuts, going over the edge. And these are the same people that didn't even like Rebels. My goodness, it's so frustrating. They hated Rebels. They thought it was stupid. They called it stupid. They called it a child's animated show. They didn't know what was, they didn't know what they were doing. Blah blah blah.
Now it's the highest level of canon.
Exactly, and now they're like holding it to the highest level of canon because the Grand Inquisitor is there. And I get on the surface he's there.
Any reason to crap on things, though, too.
Whatever.
Sometimes.
Yeah. But here's the thing. So, and I posted this on Twitter too. Joby Harold, again in that same article that I've referred to from the Hollywood Reporter, said, as you know, we would never break canon. So that's all I'll say. Canon is everything.
Yep.
So that tells us that the Grand Inquisitor is the same Grand Inquisitor that we see in Star Wars Rebels.
Right.
So presumably he's going to survive in some way. I don't know what it is. If they've done that, and this is the point that we were making, like they wouldn't go consciously kill the Grand Inquisitor and go, oh yeah, we forgot. It just doesn't happen, right? There's
because again, Rebels is so firmly embedded in canon, you can't avoid that. And with Dave Filoni so involved with things these days, he was like, no,
right.
I've got the circle of trust right here, and you're kind of, I'm gonna have to lop that limb off.
Yeah. So all this points to that there is a reason. I don't know what that reason is, but if they're going to do that, then
I mean, and there's a variety of ways they can bring him back too. We saw this with Fennec Shan, right? You just put some pistons in her and she's good to go.
Yeah.
So they could go get Thundercat, to bring him back. we also know that Bacta heals. I mean, Bacta's got some amazing properties. But again, I mean, there are a number of ways that, he may not, he sure looked dead. And he maybe was dead, but have they resurrected him? And is there again, more to that line that we hear in Rebels of, there's a fate far worse than death. And maybe we get an example of that here. I think it's also an example of material we saw later on, but do we get another inkling of it here of kind of damning his soul even further?
Yeah, that last line that she says about who's in the gutter now.
Yeah.
That was pretty cold.
It was, yeah. I mean, he did not see that coming.
Well, and now that he has, here's the other thing.
Oh,
he knows. He knows that
she's a marked woman. Yeah.
She is. That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't understand. Well, we predicted she would make it out of the series. Now I'm 100% confident that she doesn't. And if the Grand Inquisitor doesn't kill her, then I hate to say this, but I think it's going to be somebody like Vader. I think
that was who we initially. That's kind of who we were. At least I think both of us were in agreement there, right? That we think that Vader's going to be the one to. She's going to disappoint him one too many times, or maybe just once, and game over.
Well, I think about
he's put her on notice.
Line, oh, for sure, 100%. I think about the line of with Krennic, right? Don't choke on your aspirations. He's not above that, and of course, he didn't kill Krennic, and that's a totally different position, right? That he wouldn't,
right.
But he put the fear of God in him, or the fear of the Force, or fear of the dark side. If you go back to do you remember the Vader comic? And I forget the name of the title, but it was that one that a lot of people took issue with. No pun intended. That issue that
probably Target Vader or Vader Down, one of the two.
It was the one where there was the girl that was obsessed with Vader.
Oh, yes.
Do you remember that? And she was like writing these love letters and talking about how wonderful and obsessed she was. What was that one?
Those were in those like the Tales of Vader's Castle and stuff that Kevin Scott wrote. Yeah, I think those were in those horror ones. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll spoil this comic because nobody read it, but us too.
Love you, Kevin. Jeez.
No, but there was only I don't know. They just didn't do. A lot of people took issue with it, but here's the problem: the way the issue played out was she was overly infatuated with him. She loved Vader. She was like a Vader groupie almost. She wasn't Force sensitive that I recall, but Vader very coldly just goes and kills her. Like, and that's how the comic ended. Like, after everything she said and done for the 30 whatever pages in this comic book, when he finally has the opportunity, he's just like, stabs her with a lightsaber and is like, I'm done with you kind of thing. Just leaves her there. And I'm just wondering, like, I'm getting that same vibe from Reva. If she is somebody who's infatuated with Vader, wants to be like him, wants to be I won't go so far as to say she wants to be the rule of two or be her right-hand person or anything like that. But she does seem like, hey, I'm doing all this for Vader, and she's trying to gain favor with Vader, and they're, of course, they're all vying for that same thing. But
Dark Visions.
That's it, Dark Visions.
Yeah.
Who wrote that? Was that Kevin Scott?
No, that was Hopeless. I'm trying to remember.
That's
Hopeless.
the person's name. I thought you were saying.
That was the last. Yeah, that's their last name. I forgot the first name.
Interesting. That's got to be a challenge to get through life with the last name of Hopeless. But I'm just joking. I actually enjoyed the story because I thought it was pretty cold and of Vader to do what he did. Where I was going with this is that gives me enough reason to think that Vader could easily just do away with her too once he's got what he needs, or feels like, you've disappointed me and I'm going to set an example, or I'm going to send a message to the other Inquisitors about this. And
again, Vader ties up loose ends too, right? Mm-hmm. And so if there's any kind of loose end, he's not afraid to go. And I mean, we saw this I know we bring up the comics a lot, folks, and I guess I should apologize, but I'm not really sorry because they're really good stories and there's a lot there, obviously. But he goes through and kills a lot of people that you were like, well, no, they seem like they were still useful. Right. I mean, he jettisoned Dr. Aphra at an airlock, which is the one way she did not want to die. But Aphra is insanely useful, but she was too much of a loose cannon and too much of a, just a wild card to where he's okay. Well, no, I can't trust you to do these other things, even though, you have usefulness, but no, out the airlock.
Yeah. And is Reva a wild card? Hell yeah, she is.
Oh yeah, I mean clearly
Unpredictable.
right. And again, we think that there's some sort of loyalty to Vader, at least from an ascension type of perspective, but we still don't have that absolute confidence that she doesn't have some other objective behind all of that, and that she's just trying to achieve a certain level before she does something even more crazy or more, not crazy, that's not the right word, but just something more threatening to Vader's his little empire he's created as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's an interesting one though to see where she's going. And again, I think that's why granted, Obi-Wan and Vader are de facto most interesting characters, but man, Reva is up there though. There's stuff with Reva that I think we genuinely want to know what's going on, where she's, where all this is coming from and what her actual objectives really are.
So we talked about the last lines of, you can't run, Obi-Wan. He's coming. You can't escape him. He will find you. We will destroy you is what she says.
Yeah, she very much tags herself and Vader together, that she's his right-hand person.
Mm-hmm. Not a good recipe, I'm telling you.
No, because they don't share power.
Nope, they don't.
And again, it's like, okay, is there something beyond that too? She can't be foolish enough to think she can overthrow Vader, but maybe. Yeah. She wouldn't be the first.
But Obi-Wan says Anakin, and it's in that moment we cut over to the eyes opening up, and we get to see Vader very briefly there in the back tank, and then of course it ends with the heavy breathing, and that's just kind of the prelude to what we're going to get in episode 3. Picks up right from that, or part 3, picks up right there. But I guess the question is there any doubt in your mind that they somehow connected to the Force when he spoke that, or is that just a editing coincidence kind of thing?
Well,
tie the two together.
Yeah, I think it's great editing, to tie them together. But again, they have a special connection, and if Obi-Wan is starting to open himself up a little bit, especially if he's trying to search to see if this is something he actually believes, it's very possible that they could have felt each other in some way.
Yeah.
And I think that's a very realistic thing. And if the showrunners were to come out and say absolutely it happened, I'd be like, okay, yeah, it makes sense. I don't have any problem either way. Or if it was just really a cool editing, but at the same time, I think the safer bet, or the more fun bet is to say, no, they had a moment, much like they did when they were on the Amapuzo in part 3.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm going to go with that one because it's just more interesting.
Yeah.
And again, it just speaks more to their connection as brothers, effectively.
Right. Yeah, I think so too. Because otherwise, if they didn't, then they've cut out the time that it took for Reva to get back on a hologram or whatever and say, hey, we found him. Oh, you found him. And then, not as dramatic if that's.
We need to work on your Vader voice. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I'm Vader. Nailed it. First time.
First time, every time.
First time, every time. Okay, so if you're playing at home, we're going to end the show there. But if you're playing at home on the hero's journey, he is now in the abyss, death, and rebirth phase. So he's gone through everything else. He's gone through the call to adventure, supernatural aid, threshold guardians. The mentor is an interesting one. I don't know what that one would be just yet. Maybe it is somebody like Leia. It could be Leia, honestly. Or she's at least the helper. The challenges and temptations, and then there's the revelation piece. So the next phase is going to be transformation, atonement, and then the return to him being the person that he was.
Right.
So
I think Bail has kind of fit that mold
right.
a little bit. But I agree. I think it's probably more realistically in this scenario, it's probably more Leia. But again, they're separated at this point, and he's got to go get her again too, right? So, is it during this that we start to see that shift? But yeah, at the hero's journey is very much in full effect here, and it applies directly to the series. So it's kind of cool to see that continue to come up, but with a bit of a kind of a new shakeup around it.
Yep. Oh, okay. Last comment, because Noah hasn't stepped in here yet. I was trying to justify her hate for Kenobi and the possibility that she is going after Vader, and I wonder if she blames Obi-Wan for the atrocities that Vader committed in the temple. That's an interesting take.
That seems very plausible.
I can see that happening. She obviously knows that Vader was Anakin, and everyone knew who was responsible for teaching Anakin. Yeah, so maybe she does hold him responsible for, how could you have done this to Anakin Skywalker? How could you have let him fall to the dark side. It's
Yeah,
interesting.
but again, everything with Reva is very much a we thing with Vader. And so again, is it like you were saying? Is it kind of the Stockholm Central syndrome type of thing, or is she really just hook, line, and sinker, really all in from the very beginning when she was found?
Yeah, or she's a sympathizer. Sympathizer for Anakin.
Maybe, yeah, or maybe more empathizer more than sympathy. But yeah, because again, she was kind of cast aside too.
Mm-hmm.
So it'd be interesting.
Well, any predictions for part 3 that you'd like to share?
Oh man, part 3. I think I have a feeling we're probably going to see Vader, probably right off the bat. And it wouldn't surprise me if we see a bit of a conflict there with Obi-Wan. Maybe our first combat.
Yeah, I
That'd be
think they're going to
cool,
fight.
right?
I think they're going to fight in this next episode.
Yeah, I think so.
And I predict we'll see a stormtrooper cut in half. How? I don't know exactly.
Well, if you had to guess, maybe cameos or name drops of anything. Any ideas you want to throw out there on that one?
I'd like to see Quinlan Voss.
That's a great one, man. Especially with
Yeah.
the connection him and Obi-Wan have had and the friendship. That would make a lot of sense.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
That's a good one. I think also we might get this flavor of an underground railroad too. We've already got that vibe here, so I think that would be kind of neat too, right?
I like that. Yeah. That's good. All right. Well, we'll see. I mean, you never know.
Never know. It's possible.
We could be completely wrong, or we could have gotten all those right.
Yeah. I also think we're going to see Zach Braff. Not to be very specific about it all, but
No, I don't think we'll see him, but I think we'll hear him.
oh, that's a good point. Yeah.
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 As like a mole or something, like a star.
Oh
mole.
yeah.
Like,
Oh, you
not
mean
to be
like
specific,
okay, yeah,
but a star mole, I think is what they're called.
yeah, and driving a tractor.
Okay, we're losing viewers.
Yeah, I don't blame him.
Any,
Actually, we're not. We just ticked up.
we just ticked up, right? All right, we'll end it there. Got any final thoughts? Anything else before we? I mean, we're only it's like this time tomorrow. I'm going to be prepping for the next episode, which means I'll be drinking
Lots of
non-caffeinated
decaf
beverages. Yeah, and
yeah, clearly getting ready.
MPQ, getting ready.
Getting your Oreos and milk ready.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
No, rewatching these, I enjoyed it more than I did the first, 2 or 3 times. And I wasn't sure how much I would enjoy because it's a bit of a longer 2 episodes. But actually, you keep grabbing little things as you go, and you get a little extra meaning, a little depth to it. And I really have enjoyed that. And actually, I found Reva to continue to be a more compelling character every time, and really just interested to see where this goes now that it's kind of crazy to think that we're halfway through all this.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's kind of nuts.
I'm with you. I'm watching them again, and it's been like this with all of the series, honestly, with Book of Boba Fett and of course the Mando seasons as well, and even the movies. Right, every time you watch it, there's something that you just miss, and all that, and that's a credit to the writers and the depth. And some of this is in our heads, I know. Some of it's not, but it's always fun to talk about and fun to speculate on. So I can't wait. We got a lot to talk about come the next episode here, which would be Thursday night for us. I think we're going to do one tomorrow. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, we haven't really talked about
We haven't really talked about it yet. But
we have so many things to catch up on. Yeah.
Yeah, it'll likely be something from Celebration that we do. But definitely Thursday, join us for a live show, and we'll be breaking down part 4, which we're at that halfway mark. So from here on out, I'm expecting some pretty big things to happen.
Yep.
Can't wait. Okay. Well, thanks again. You got shout outs?
Yeah. So again, thanks for everyone. We had another great crowd tonight. So thank you so much, everybody that was in the chat, but also lurking in the background. For those listening, we do live stream this every time that we come on live. So check our social media feeds. Usually it's at the Cantina Cast. Also, you can check out cantinacast.com/events. Shout out to Jonathan, Ken, Lauren, Justin, David, Stephanie, Jorge, Qui-Gon, Katya, Gary, Matthew, Janora, Noah, and Rob. Thank you all for showing up and participating in the chat and hitting the like and love buttons. So we really appreciate all the support. Also, a great way to keep track of the live streams will be over on YouTube. If you go hit that like button and smash the subscribe button and do the little notification bell, you will get everything you want to know. And we're actually really close to 1,000 listeners or 1,000 subscribers, so that would be kind of cool. And who knows what we'll think about doing if we actually hit 1,000.
I'm not thinking about doing anything right now, but
yeah,
no, that is cool because we don't.
We'll see. We'll get Albert all dressed up. We'll do something fun with him.
Okay, I guess.
What? You like doing that stuff?
I wore my Boba Fett onesie once, and now you think I'm going to dress up every time? Okay, fine, I'll dress up. But, but
you
yeah,
told me that you went and got one of those MeUndies onesies. So,
yeah.
or they were out of stock when you tried buying them. No, that's not true. We're going to get you one. If we get to 1,000 subs, we'll get Albert a new onesie. we'll have him wear it and see how long it takes him to pass out.
Yeah.
We will live stream until he passes out.
Die from heat exhaustion.
Not die, just pass out.
Pass out.
I'll call your wife. It'll be fine. I'll be like, hey, go check on Albert. Think he took one for the team there.
Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate that. There's, okay. So I got some new credits and we updated them. Like I said, I was going to. So I had some time. Now, whether or not I picked the right one,
right.
We'll see.
Everybody look for spelling errors so that we can just point out.
Yeah. All right. We'll see you guys tomorrow. If not, then we will see you on Thursday.
You're still listening? Wow, that's amazing. Well, I'm here to give you the disclaimer. Normally we do a big, long, drawn-out disclaimer thing saying what's what and who's what and all that other stuff, but I think you guys kind of know that Lucasfilm and Disney have no affiliation with us at all, and we have none with them. We talk about Star Wars, which is their property and all that other good, fun stuff, but I think you can tell which is our stuff and which is their stuff. If you can't, well, then send a lawyer to send an email to me, and I'll be glad to chat with them. Other than that, you know what's what, so that's your disclaimer.